Before we start, I would just like to say that at the time of this recording, the world is in the throes of the COVID-19 coronavirus. At this time, it is vital that you follow all the precautions and do all that you can to keep yourself and your families safe. These are extraordinary times, but we will get through it if we work together and do all we can to support our frontline healthcare network and those who continue to work so that you can stay at home. Follow your government guidelines. Hello and welcome to An Unsociable Hour, a bi-monthly podcast hosted by me, Matthew Elliott White. This podcast exists to offer a platform to those who have inspired, interested and intrigued me, for me to introduce those people to you, the listener. Society seems to force-feed us celebrity culture and tells us who we should admire and look up to. I wanted to introduce you to real people, with real achievements and real accomplishments. We tend to judge others on first impressions. We judge and seldom ever give that person an opportunity to talk about themselves. That is the purpose of this show. I will introduce a guest who has been very kind in agreeing to be here, and we will chat openly over various topics to learn more about their lives and hear their stories, ranging from nostalgia to the past, to the utter chaos of the modern world, or more importantly, just to learn kind of what their interests are and who they are as a person. Tonight's guest is a young man who's been kind enough to join me for our second episode, and so I would like to invite you all listening at home to hear his story. Andrew Goodhew, thank you so much for making the time to speak with me this evening.
It's a pleasure.
Firstly, how are you today?
I'm fine, thank you for asking. It's a nice day in southeast of England, so I've been out briefly this afternoon.
That's great news. Andrew, if you listened to the last episode, you'll know that I would now like to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself, because first impressions are important. But what really intrigues me is your introduction will allow me an insight into what aspect you find most important about yourself.
Okay, my name is Andrew Goodhew, and I am the founder and also creator of J SoundBites. I'm the only person doing it at the moment, because just get to know me, I am a key worker. So I'm doing this in my spare time and just for fun at this time. J SoundBites is mainly concentrating on what's happening in the Japanese music scene in particular, like from pop, from idol to alt idol and to rock and heavy metal. Basically, that's what my speciality is.
That's awesome. And you say you're a key worker as well.
Yeah.
How have you found the current situation with obviously being on the front lines?
It has been difficult at times, but it's still working great. So I've had no cases so far. So that's following the guidelines at the moment.
That's great. Well, I definitely hope that you will stay safe, and thank you for all of the hard work that you are doing through this time. Andrew, as the creator, what inspired you to start J SoundBites?
It was mainly I think it was like J SoundBites in particular. Just for me, it was how shall I say? It was I think it was a time of Metal Hammer's Golden Gods in 2018. I did a review on not only the experience, but also one of the bands in particular, which I'm going to be mentioning probably a few times anyway, Love Bites. They won Best New Band that time, and I had already planned to go to Golden Gods, even if they didn't win or not, even if they won or not. And I did a review pretty much on there, and then I did some few reviews on on my own, just on Facebook or whatever. Experiencing what I did at a few shows and festivals, and then I think it's time after Metal Missouri, the passion just sort of grown. It did to do more reviews, and then a couple of weeks ago, which I formed the group, I thought, why not I do something for my own sort of thing, and then this came about. So basically, I mainly do at its present, I do reviews, like you might have seen some on YouTube, and like also doing songs of the day at this present time. See how things go. I'm going to be doing a few more things very soon, but I'm going to keep that all a secret for the time being.
That's awesome. I must say, I have been enjoying the Song of the Day. It's given me an opportunity to discover some groups that I hadn't noticed before, so I'm very appreciative of that. Would you say that Love Bites has been very important to you then as a band?
Yes. I'll probably send some pictures to you. I've actually got a few. I've got 3 tattoos on my arm. So
Wow.
Yeah. It's basically started off with like after Hyper Japan, and it's just like after their show Hyper Japan, and they did the Underworld. Like a few days later, I just like how the crowd reacted. I'm witnessing something big here, and it's another one of those bands that you don't very often hear from Japan that they actually sing in English, even though I don't mind them singing in their own language if they feel comfortable in doing. But like, it's another one of those rarity bands that sing in English, and also music inspired by European metal too.
Yeah, that is awesome. And as somebody that has Japanese music tattoos myself, I can 100% understand your passion for that. So in terms of J SoundBites, do you have a long-term plan? Is there anything that you'd like to kind of expand, or anything that you'd like to bring to the show that you haven't yet looked into?
At this time, it's only just started, so I'm just sort of working my way slowly. So I'm doing doing reviews, songs of the day, any news that come up. Like soon I'll be doing a reaction video probably by June, and just working my way from there. But I'm only taking it slowly, so
yeah,
it's a new thing.
That's totally understandable. Yeah. So when you I suppose when you go for the song of the day, is it purely random, or do you tend to plan ahead?
Sometimes it's random, sometimes what I'm listening to that day, or just what comes into my mind, really. Sometimes I have something planned, and I'm going to give you an exclusive. Today's song of the day is going to be a band-made song, but I haven't decided yet because I had some news come today, but I won't tell you why.
Well, that is fully understandable. Thank you for explaining that. I do very much like Bandmade. Yeah. So I suppose it's kind of a similar question, but how do you decide what content you wish to make? Like, how do you come up with the ideas?
Sometimes I come up like the ideas like either on the day or what comes into my mind, like thinking about like. When I say soon, that means like I think when I have this free time to what's going to come next, sort of thing. Like yesterday, I did one on JPU, which I had plans to do for quite some time, but I did a video on JPU, why they're so important to the music scene here in the UK and everything. Which, believe me, JPU, I do recommend JPU Records. They've got such a great talent of artists on there.
Yes, I mean, I could be wrong, but am I right in thinking that Mutant Monster is JPU?
Yes, they are JPU.
Yeah. I very much like those as well. Would you say that music is the primary interest in the Japanese culture scene, or are you more of a man of many interests?
I have many interests. Like I do like their food, obviously, and that is one of them. Because I like some anime, but not very a big anime fan. But Peter is a big anime fan of things, and also some gaming stuff. But this project that I'm doing is just mainly on about the music side of things.
Of course. And although at the minute, obviously, you're saying that you're just starting up, one of the main focuses is kind of on Song of the Day and the reviews. Do you think you'll try to get out to many shows and cover them for J SoundBites?
Let's see what the future brings, because I'm not like rushing into things.
Yeah, of course, and I wouldn't kind of want to put you on the spot anyway. It's just kind of as an idea. Yeah. So where did your interest in Japan start?
I didn't know like where you had like stuff like Pokemon and like some of those classic animes like Pokemon, Digimon, the original Digimon that is, and Card Captors, the original, and the Yu-Gi-Oh series. And like, because I was into like little bits of anime, and then it was about. I went to a nightclub that I can mention named Totally Wired. It was a nightclub in the UK which used to be open every week on a Friday. And the first ever Japanese band that I ever listened to was Maximum the Hormone.
Yes.
And it was their song from Death Note, which is What's Up, which is a great song, by the way. And when I first heard it, I went up to the DJ, asked who it was, and I checked them out like a few days later. And it sort of started from then. Then, like, my first Japanese band that I ever actually saw was Crossfaith at Download 2014. That's the first Japanese band I ever saw, and I was, because I've been listening to them just beforehand anyway, and it was like after their Download show, which is actually on YouTube, their full show, I was just blown away how good they were. And then a day later, I was actually talking to them like when I was watching Bring Me the Horizon at the same time.
Wow, that is awesome. And from when you were saying that you kind of went to a club, I'm assuming quite close to where you live. You went to a club where they were playing Maximum the Hormone. Like,
yeah, that
I would never expect to kind of find that in it. Was it like a club night?
Yeah, it was a club night. It was. It's called Totally Wired, and I know the people too. And like it used to be it's a nightclub for alternative music, such as like they had at the time they had one floor of you had the rock, the indie pop, and the alternative dancing. And the second floor you had the rock, heavy metal, and everything. And then that was the first Japanese band I ever heard. And then going into more of the music, what dropped me into the Japanese music was like, I know loads of people might know this, baby metal. Really, it's sort of like was my gateway to more of the Japanese music scene.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's no shame in that. I personally think Baby Metal are a great band.
Yeah.
So, for anybody who hasn't yet discovered J SoundBites, do you have any particular recommendations for them, or anything that you'd like them to kind of pay a particular interest to?
Ooh, that is a good question. Because most, let's go say a few things I will recommend. Like Bandmade is one of them, because I've had a few people comment on that, and because I'm a fan of Bandmade. What else? It's just like, yeah, for Bandmade, for the like rock side of things. Then it comes to Idol. My first review was Merry Bad End.
Yes.
Awesome. And also I haven't. So I'm slowly bringing more stuff in, like what bands that I like. So that was the first review I did for J SoundBites, was the Merry Bad End's new single.
Yeah, that is awesome. So that is what you would recommend for people to kind of check out going into J SoundBites.
Yeah. There's more that I recommend, but those two will stick for now. So.
Okay. When you were saying that J SoundBites is pretty new, it's something that you've just kind of started up and have kind of got on the road, so to speak. How do you promote that?
I promote that with because I've only got I've only just started. I'm like sort of doing it organically, like see what I'll share it on Facebook or Twitter, that sort of thing. I use that, and also YouTube as well. So just to like try and get more people in to follow the group and everything, and see what options. I always tag like bands and artists that were on there too. So try and get more people in, even though I'm doing it slowly. I don't mind taking my time on things. So.
Yeah, of course. And the thing is it's better to take your time and make it exactly what it is that you want, as opposed to rush it out and not be happy with the end result.
Yeah, that's basically what I do.
If we were to say that J SoundBites is going to grow kind of and be all that you would want it to be, if you could have any guest on J SoundBites, such as an idol, who would it be?
An idol? Oh, blimey. You put me on the... That is a really good question. That is a really good question, because there's so many idols that I like, that I love. Oh, that's going to be difficult. I would say, and for you've really put me on the spot here.
Don't feel you have to answer right now. If you'd rather, you can always answer later.
I would say for Idolwise, I would say Himary's Necronom Idol's Himary, because I've had a good chat with her. Like when it came to the talk, their European Inquisition tour last year, I had a good conversation with her when it came to anime wise on some of it.
That is very cool.
Yeah.
Do you frequent many gigs in the UK?
I know I do like loads of gigs, like see what interests me or what bands that I like come over. Sometimes I'll stall on like say some of the bands that I love that are non-Japanese, because I see because my mum can see what the Japanese Japanese bands, see what they do, because sometimes it could clash, sometimes it could be days apart of one another. It's like sort of like a good idea to like balance it out, because as they need it more than some of the other bands do.
Yeah, that's understandable. What is your most memorable event?
Oh, I've got I'm going to say one of them, because I said this to you on chat yesterday, and that I've got two memories, but I'm going to do this one first. The best one was I would say Love Bites was the best story, like 2018, and also partly last year. Basically, this whole thing started off at when it was at Wacken for Love Bites, and the bassist Miho was talking about beer in Germany, and I tweeted her and said because my favourite drink here in the UK is cider, and I said to her, when you're in the UK, as much as you like beer, try cider. It tastes just as good and fruity too. And then as soon as she arrives to the UK, she's literally copy and pasted sort of what I said, and it was a picture of her one of the bottled ciders. And then when it came to Bloodstock, and they were doing a signing session, they were, and I was one of the first people like out the like sort of general assistant queue, not general assistant queue, general admission queue, and like there's one of the members of Simi has waved, and I've waved back, and then and then the bassist Miho was the first person to be seen, and she's gone. Actually, first thing she said to me was, "Thanks for introducing me to cider."
Wow.
Yeah, and like it says, I prefer bottled ones, and then straight after, it was Masami, the vocalist, and the first words she said to me was, "Nice to see you again, Andrew."
Wow.
Yeah, and so that was just amazing, because of course social media helps, because sometimes like what I quite like is bands react to people and they know who they are straight away. And then last year when Love Bites were touring with Dragon Force, if you went to that tour, that was awesome. London, Miho just actually gone past with a couple of the crew, and she's seen me. She goes, "What cider do you recommend me?" And we just got started on from there.
It's that is amazing, because it's one of those things as well where it's kind of like it makes the interaction, and in dealing with kind of like these groups, it just makes it so much more special.
Yes.
Because when you say that, obviously you're in a position now where they know who you are.
Yeah.
You know, and that kind of is a great way to deal with fans to a degree, I imagine, would be kind of they remember that. Can you remember what cider it was?
What how do you mean by cider? What the photo?
What Miho tried when they came over.
When she came over, it was the Jack Daniel's version of their cider, the whiskey cider.
Wow.
Yeah, it was the first one, because she likes her whiskey as sometimes too.
Mate, that is awesome, and thank you so much for sharing that story.
That's it's always a pleasure. That's one thing I like about some of the Japanese bands. So because sometimes you don't get you want to interact with your favourite people, especially in the West, where they don't respond sometimes. But in Japan, I'm no matter what you do, if it's on Facebook, if it's Twitter or Instagram, they'll respond in a way like if it's a reaction or sometimes comment.
Yeah, it feels much more personal, much more one-on-one.
Yeah.
There is a fantastic community
Definitely.
of Japanese music fans.
Yeah.
And they are so supportive, and it's great that, especially with the groups, interacting with that community.
Yeah.
You know, it is great. How do you find being interested in the idol scene?
Oh, like first, yeah, like what interested me in the idol was like Sakura Queen, which is which was where Baby Metal started. It's sort of like that was my first idol group I ever listened to, and then I think it was about 2016 I listened to Kari Pamya Pamya, which then it was sort of like went on from there. So
Okay.
like my first ever idol group that I ever saw was I know that there are JPU acts, but they're no longer together, and that is Moso Calibration. And I saw them at Hyper Japan 2017. That was the first idol group I ever saw live, and then it sort of went on from there. Then alternative idol came in, so that's another good thing.
How do you feel about the alternative idol scene?
It's actually interesting, really. It's really interesting to see what actually comes out, really. Because I discovered I discovered Mary Bannon from which I'm going to shout out to Derek, and also there's another one. Christine was another one, just to name those two, which I quite like right now.
Yeah,
Besides Necronom Idol, Hanako-san, Yuffie of Garuda, and so on.
it is definitely we definitely share a lot of similar interests in terms of the music. And Derek at Idol Underworld is a lovely guy.
Yes, he is.
Before we move on, you have quite an impressive music and Checky collection, am I right?
Yes, it's a small Checky collection, but I do have a lot of CDs.
Do you have a particular treasure? So, for example, in the previous episode, Adam mentioned that he once received a poster signed by Touch My Secret for his birthday. What would you say is your most treasured item?
Oh, treasured item? Oh, that is a difficult question. Treasured item. I know it's the only one I've actually got. It's Femme with Femme with 80s and 90s pop revival, and it's only 250 ever made. It's in a cassette tape, and they all signed it, and that's at Hyper Japan 2017 winter. And that's the only one that cassette tape that I've got as they're slowly coming back.
That is amazing.
Yeah,
that is awesome.
Yeah.
Obviously, I want to ask you about the current situation the world's facing. Has the coronavirus had any impact on J SoundBites?
Not really, in particular, because like I say, it's only started about 2 weeks ago. J SoundBites did, so it's sort of slowly, and just seeing how things are getting along. So that's how I'm doing it. If there's any good news come about, I'll just make new posts as it comes along. So
yeah, okay. And how has the lockdown affected you personally?
Not much, really, because of course I'm a key worker, so I have to get on with things, and that's the one thing. And then if there's any help, I'll do the help anyway. If it's shopping or whatever at home, I'll do it.
And that is awesome. I'm glad to hear that. Obviously, it's not affecting you, in a negative way, and I'm glad that you are still kind of essentially doing all that you can on the front lines. Thank you for that. That is amazing.
No worries. And also talking to friends, even though it's difficult, but things are on the up. So let's got my fingers crossed for that. So
good. That's great to hear, mate. Obviously, because of the lockdown and because the coronavirus is happening all over the world, there's been kind of a real interest in online shows. Have you seen this? Yes,
I have.
How do you feel about those in a world after the coronavirus?
It's gonna feel weird not watching stuff live, or watching some DVDs, but to some people, it gives you like an experience of what their shows are like. If it was full of people, in a way, like how they bring the energy and everything.
But I imagine you will be also happy to kind of get back to gigs and things like that.
Oh yes,
time.
Definitely. That's sometimes the wait can be worth it.
Definitely, absolutely. Okay, so now I'd like to ask you some more personal questions in no particular order to learn more about you, if that'd be okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Cool. So, as somebody who shares your passion for Japan, especially in a country where it can often be frowned upon or misunderstood, how was it growing up with these interests where you grew up?
Like I've always been like when it comes to like Japanese culture, I was like fascinated on things like got the anime, but music came a little bit later, and food. Like there's another thing with food. And when always thought like this is like when I was don't know how old, I can't remember how old. Always thought Japan like for food wise was sushi or raw fish, but later I just sort of like adapted. I learned a lot more things when it comes to food wise, so I like their food a lot, and I've also got into sushi as well, like about last year. So and my favorite sushi right now is unagi, which is eel.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I mean, Japanese cuisine is. I would say it's very dynamic.
Yeah.
It kind of there are many different layers or levels to it, I suppose.
Yeah.
Do you have a particular favourite dish outside of eel currently, or do you have what would be your go-to?
Yeah, ramen definitely.
Definitely a fan of ramen.
Yeah, I love ramen so much. I don't mind the others, but ramen is the best for me.
So if we have some listeners who have never tried Japanese food before or Japanese cuisine, could you recommend a particular dish?
If you like stir fry noodles type thing, like it's called soba, like soba noodles, just start off with a stir fry sort of type of thing, like a soba type meal, which started off my thing. Then slowly like try things like if you like like Chinese dumplings, they've got dumplings there. Like if you like squid, that's another one, like fried squid. Just sort of work your way up, and then if you like that more, try something different. If you like that, try something more, and so on.
That's cool. Your interest in Japanese music and in Japanese culture, how do you feel that played into who you are today?
Like it's the music that inspired me a lot for who I am, really. Because like I know it's going to sound a bit negative to some people about Western music. Like some of it can be like the same and all that, but in Japan there's loads of stuff going on that is quite new and fresh at the same time. Like quite new and fresh and putting their own spin on things, which I like.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we were speaking in the last episode about how the scene is forever changing and it's so quick, so dynamic, the way that things can almost change on the spin of a coin.
Yeah, like for example, I know I've mentioned, like we've mentioned a few anyway. It's the all-female girl boom that's going on right now, like especially for the rock and metal bands. It's something new in general because you don't see that happen very often in the Western world, Western culture. So that's the one main thing.
Absolutely, and especially in a country like Japan, where I imagine the marketplace is absolutely teeming with so many different groups. It's got to be quite difficult to stand out and to really make a name for yourself in that industry.
Yeah, it is difficult. It does look difficult.
Is there a particular new group on the horizon that's caught your attention?
Ooh, New Horizon. Like right now, the two newest ones, like for me right now, has to be Christine and Very Bad Ends. Both of them been going on for 2 years, which are quite new to some people. So I would recommend if you're into the alternative idol, and you never heard those two, check those out. So they're slowly like making a name over here But in a way,
Yes, absolutely. Merry Bad End, I've learned a lot about them from Derek, and from the. Will you be taking part in the online Checky session?
I have put my name down for it, but I'm working that day, so I'm see what happens if. But I know I've put my name down, so I will be receiving the Checky, but I won't be attending, so because of work.
Okay, well that's understandable. I hope that you are able to be in a position where you can attend, but if not, at least you know that that you will still receive the Checky. That is awesome. So, firstly, I just want to say that when I watch your content, it can be quite overwhelming, kind of just how much courage it must take to actually put yourself and your interests out there for the world to see, especially in a country such as ours in the UK, where you are almost made to feel like a bit of an outsider if you like a lot of these groups. I know that scene is currently changing at the moment and things are becoming a little bit more understanding. But I think that takes courage and it takes confidence. And the kind of hard work that you do and so many others do, it's potentially inspiring some kid out there who's going through the same thing that we went through.
Yeah.
And that is awesome. And I just wanted to kind of get that out there just so that you know that when people start these projects, it can be so easy to just think, oh, well, I'm only doing this or that, and it probably doesn't matter. It's probably just a small thing. But, there are a lot of us that kind of depend on that news to some degree, because otherwise, myself, I'm not a tech guy at all. So most of my news does kind of come from people such as yourself, who are kind of bringing those new recommendations. So I just want to say thank you so much for that.
No worries. It's a pleasure as always. So,
Andrew, obviously, as somebody that has created something such as J SoundBites and has kind of worked on plenty of projects, what advice could you give to somebody who was wanting to start a project but maybe was a bit nervous?
If you're nervous, just take your time on things. Like, think of a name of your up. If you want to do a project, just think of the name, and also at the same time, just be yourself. That's all I've got to say, really. Just be yourself in what you do. That's all.
When starting a project, should they think of the end goal, or what should they think about to keep them motivated?
Just think about what you're doing first. Like, if you've got something in your mind, just think about it first before starting it. That's all I've got to say. Just think about it first.
So, what is your biggest passion outside of the Japanese music industry?
Oh, two in particular. The music, obviously, music.
Yeah.
And also, when I get a chance, I watch I spend time with family. It's the key issue, and also working. But also, one thing that I love doing is when I get a chance is watch some wrestling, professional wrestling. It's WWE, AEW, that sort of thing. Is
that something that you've liked for quite a long time, or is that kind of a new interest?
It's not a new interest in a way. They're two things that I concentrate more, and also gaming is another thing. When I'm not when I have free time, I do some of that. So, but I'm just one of those casual people that likes to take time on things, not taking it seriously.
Of course. What's your favourite video game?
I know it's been out for the last month, but my favourite of this year has to be Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Absolutely, yes, of course. I know that this is probably a question that I already know the answer to, but I'm going to ask anyway. If you could live anywhere in the world, where would you live?
Japan, really. It's such a great country. I don't mind whereabouts I live, really, in Japan, as long as it's the scenery is just nice, the food is just amazing, out of this world, and I just love to try explore new things. So
that is awesome. Do you tend to travel much?
Before the coronavirus actually happened, I was meant to go to Japan last month, on a cruise, and was going to places like Hiroshima and a couple of other things. But now, as things happen, I couldn't go. But I'm going to try and go next year for Bamei's Budokan show in February. That's my target right now.
I'm so sorry that you couldn't make the trip.
No worries.
Obviously, due to the situation, but I do 100% hope that you can get out there for that show. That would be awesome.
Yes.
So now I've asked our previous guest this, and again, I imagine it's quite important for the work that you do with J SoundBites, but what is your opinion on social media?
Social media can be a good thing, in particular when it comes to getting your name for yourself, and also like help out, like even if it's like some bands like from Japan or whatever, even if they're big or small, just give them a shout out and let them know that there's something out there like for them to come over, like fan base and everything really. So that's all I've got to say to that.
Do you find that any particular platform works best for the work that you do?
Twitter, really. Twitter. YouTube can be helpful, but Twitter in particular. Sometimes like you get some people like retweeting stuff, really. So
yeah, and I can imagine that Twitter is also very helpful for kind of keeping in touch with the groups and kind of getting the feedback back from the groups that you are promoting as well.
Yes, that is true.
If an opportunity arose to see any particular group that you haven't seen already, what do you think would be your dream gig?
Dream gig? I could have gone to it in 2017, but I didn't have enough money at the time. It would be X Japan, one of the biggest Japanese bands right now. I would love to see them. I really would.
Absolutely. Have you seen the documentary film?
No, I haven't, sadly, but I'll get the chance to very soon.
I do recommend it. It is fantastic, and that is a great answer. Also, I've got some situational questions for you.
Yeah, that's fine.
So, if you could ask your future self any question, what would you ask?
Future self?
Yeah.
How do you mean by future self? If it's a past, or is it past?
So, if right now you were sat in a bar or a cafe, and you could sit down with a version of yourself from, let's say, 20, 30 years in the future, but you were only allowed to ask one question, what would you ask?
What would be your biggest achievement?
That's great. That's an awesome answer.
Yeah. That's all I've got to say. What would be your biggest achievement? That's all I've got to say.
So next, you're walking in a forest. You find a black suitcase. Inside it, there's £1 million and a piece of paper stained in blood with a single word, don't. Do you take the suitcase home or do you leave it?
Oh, especially when it says don't. That is a tricky question. That is a really, really tricky question. Because when it says don't, does it mean by like don't take it or like something happens or do take it? But that is a really good question, but that's a really difficult answer to say because you don't know what the consequences are. So that's a question that I can't answer.
That is understandable. And I'm going to ask you the question that I couldn't get round to getting an answer, I don't think, in the last episode, which was, if you started a bar, what would you name it?
Started a bar, what would I name it? Is this one? That one had a good name, but it was in Final Fantasy VII, called Seventh Heaven.
Yes,
they're sounding the great name. So you don't hear like bars or whatever that have heaven in it. So that's the thing I can think of.
Yeah, you obviously visit a lot of. You were saying that you've kind of been to things like Hyper Japan.
Yeah.
Do you kind of go to many conventions across the country?
No, Hyper Japan's been the only one. So, because I'm like, with me, I'm like, I do like the culture and what's happening with anime, but what gets me into Hyper Japan is what they bring for like music wise. That's the thing for me that got me into Hyper Japan was the music. But because I don't mind like exploring new things, because I'm like like I said, 2017 was my first one. There was 3 acts that I can recommend that I really enjoyed, as well as 2018. I can name a few of that. 2017 was Sick Fly, which are like a great like electronic rock band group. Moso Calibration, which I've mentioned before, but they're no longer together. And it was a pop punk band called they were called Broken Doll, which is a great one. And from 2018, like Roa or Relic of Ancestors, which is short for their JPU act, which I highly recommend too. And also the other one in particular, which I enjoy. Another 2 I recommend. Yukika, if you haven't heard her, she's a singer-songwriter, and the other one, of course, of course you've heard of him, Ladybeard's Deadlift Lolita.
Yes. Of course. Yukika, did you say? Sorry.
Yes.
Who did she support just recently?
Because I know, like, for the London date for last year, it was Nekonomida with Season of Ghosts, which. Like, I'm gonna be truthful here, because I did Season of Ghosts, one of Season of Ghosts songs of the day the other day. Like the singer, Sophia, she used to be in a Japanese band, which apparently they blew people away at Metal Missouri, which the previous guest mentioned. But she used to be in Bloodstained Child, so I sort of did like Bloodstained Child, sort of one of their songs of the day, and I did Season of Ghosts sort of thing. So I do recommend those 2 as well.
That is awesome. I will definitely check it out, and I hope that the listener will check those out if they haven't already. Yeah. So, Andrew, we're going to slowly start to wrap up the podcast.
Yeah.
But before I do, I want to ask you an important question, and I want you to answer it as honestly as you can.
Okay.
Who has had the greatest impact on your life?
Greatest impact on my life? My uncle David, like it was about 2007. He got me into, like, I've always been a rock fan all my life, but when it came to metal wise, he got me in. It was about 2007, which I discovered like 2 of my favourites, Linkin Park and Metallica, and since then I've got into metal since then.
Thank you very much for sharing that.
Yeah.
I mentioned this in the last episode, but the reason I asked that in particular is because it's a question that not many people ask, and I think that those things are important because ultimately we are all inspired by somebody.
Yeah.
And I think that it's nice to kind of share that story, or at very least that person, with people who obviously, who've had that impact. Andrew, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show.
No worries. It's always a pleasure talking.
I'm so thankful you agreed to come on, and I do wish you the very best with J SoundBites and every project you have going forward. Thank you for answering my questions and giving us a fascinating insight into not only your passions but also your life. Mm-hmm. I hope our listeners were able to take some valuable insights, and I would like them to take a moment to follow you at J SoundBites on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Is that right?
Yes. For Twitter, and like the name was already been taken like J SoundBites. It'll be J SoundBite on Twitter, at J SoundBite on Twitter, to make it easier.
Okay, I'll make sure that I include those links in the show notes.
Yes. Yeah.
Before we do sign off, I want to give you a final opportunity to kind of promote anything that you have coming up.
For me, for J SoundBites, I will be doing a reaction video soon, but I don't know what video it's going to be at this present time, but I've got a rough idea. And in the near future, I don't know when I'll do it. I'm going to also be doing a photo of the week, which I used to do in a different project. So I'm not going to name that project, but I'm going to used to do photo of the week. So I might do that in the near future.
That is awesome, and I'm looking forward to that, so I hope that everybody else will. And thank you again.
No worries.
Stay safe throughout the pandemic. Thank you for all of the hard work that you're doing as a key worker. Yeah. We really do appreciate it.
Yeah.
I hope we will meet in person soon so that we can share a beer or a cider.
Yes.
And chat face to face.
Yeah. Yeah, we will do.
Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the second episode of An Unsociable Hour. Thank you very much for listening. Stay safe, stay positive, and please join us again next time. Good night.